and would like to welcome our speaker for today, Karen Dimmock, who is the CEO of ACD. Welcome, Karen. And
Anoo.
yes, Karen is also the advocacy. So ACD is an advocacy service for children with disability and their families in Victoria. Karen is also a founding member of the Child and Family Disability Alliance, which is a national partnership between ACD, Kind, and Kindred. And CFDA provide information, navigation, peer support, family capacity building, and self-advocacy support to more than 30,000 families a year. Karen is also on the National Expert Advisory Committee for the Review of Best Practice, which is the project I was talking to you about. I particularly am really delighted because this is a real personal favorite topic of mine, working with families and peers in peer-led, peer-supported opportunities, and with all the work that's coming out of foundational supports. I'm so excited to hear what you have to say, Karen. So over to you. Welcome to PRECI and welcome to our webinar.
Thank you so much, Anoo, for that welcome and for the opportunity to be here to speak with you all today. Peer support for families raising children with disability is an absolute passion of mine and our organisation. And this session will really be a very practical session, I hope, about how you can support families to connect with peer support. I'm going to share my screen and just hopefully get this will all work. Go to slideshow here. Now, just checking. There we go. Full screen. That's what you can all see. That's what I can see.
Yes, that's good.
Excellent. Great. Now, there will be some time for questions at the end. Please feel free to pop them in the chat if something occurs to you as we go. And I'm happy to get to those. But also, I'm really happy to share links to the resources and information that I provide today. And we can put some of that in the chat, but also I'm sure provide that to you afterwards. But let me also start by acknowledging that I join you from the Wurundjeri land of the Kulin Nation and pay my respects to the traditional owners of this land. We recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and community, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. This beautiful piece of artwork at the bottom of the screen was created by a Yorta Yorta Wurundjeri artist, Renee Jenkins. And I love the little footprints which represent a child's education journey. Let me tell you a little bit about ACD. For those of you in Victoria, I hope you've heard of us. But for those of you in other states, you might not have. We do have sister collaborative organisations in other states, and I will be talking about those a little later on. But we are the advocacy service for children with disability and their families in Victoria. We're a not-for-profit organisation. We're led by, and of course, we were created by a group of families more than 40 years ago. We are inclusive of all different types of disability, including children who don't yet have a diagnosis, and we support families of children from birth to 18. Now, peer support between families raising children with disability has always been incredibly important. We as families know that. We, of course, know that for all families, irrespective of whether a child has a developmental delay or disability. That's why we create new parent groups. So I always love it, though, when research and the wonderful work of researchers and academics backs what we know as families and as people who work directly with families. So the benefits of peer support that people get from connecting to others who are in a similar boat to them is that it can really reduce those feelings of isolation, those feelings that others don't understand what we're going through as a family, that in fact we can't go along to family events, sporting events, community gatherings the way that we had hoped to or imagined we might be able to as parents. And so that isolation that families can really feel when they have a child with delay or disability, and it really helps them connect to one another. We often talk about that when you have a child with disability, they don't come with a guidebook or even a map, and that navigating the various supports and services that are out there is hard to do. It's confusing. There's a whole language you need to learn, particularly around things like the NDIS and what sort of who funds what and how it works. And families are really important at helping each other learn and understand that, and find the things that might help them best close to home. Peer support really builds families' sense of understanding and skills and confidence in how to support their child with the developmental uh, goals and needs that they have and with what's going to work best for them. Seeing others do it when you're perhaps in a room together, that chance to practice with your own child can really build that sense of, okay, perhaps I've got a little bit of a sense of I know what I'm doing now. And also feeling more positive about their child's development and future. Perhaps seeing other families a little further along in the journey can provide hope and also a sense of, all right, if they can do it, so can I. And that while it might be different, that there are many joys to share and things to celebrate. So these are absolutely the key pillars of why peer support is so important. I think families have probably put it in different words, but this is what we repeatedly hear from people, and as I say, it's really backed by research and evidence. So hopefully, if we've convinced everyone, if we're all on the same page as to why peer support is so important, I think it's then about how we just continue to offer it to people. And I do feel like this is a little bit like encouraging children to eat broccoli, hence the image on the side here, because it's kind of one of those things that you want to offer a few times. It's not always the right time. Families can feel like they can be overwhelmed. The thought of attending some sort of play group or support group might, in fact, be just too much at that point in time. It might be that they feel I'm not quite at this stage or in this group. So simply offering it the way that perhaps we're all meant to do around broccoli to children and saying, hey, just give this a go, or this might be right for now. I think that kind of mindset is helpful when talking about peer support with families, particularly those who haven't connected with it yet, that it's just something you talk about, you make available. It's just part of your regular practice and you sort of build it into your daily work, whether it's as families register with your organisations and services, if they do express those concerns about isolation. We're always writing reports in this sector, whether it just becomes something that you mention and add as you provide families with reports, that this is something that is available to them. It's free and it can help them on their journey. But if you're going to make it part of that menu and part of what you talk about, as really busy professionals juggling so many things that you're trying to talk about and convey with families, it's helpful to know, well, where do families go to get peer support? What's local to me? What can I talk about? What can I offer? And that's really what I'm going to unpack in today's session, so that hopefully you walk away with some really practical ways of where you can direct families to. There will be other things. There will be things that you know about in your local community that you've discovered yourself, that you've heard from families exist. So this is in no way absolutely going to mention everything, but it will talk about the options that are available as much as possible Australia-wide, that you can direct families to. So we talk about the big four when it comes to peer support, and they are closed Facebook groups, My Time groups, Play Connect Plus, and family-led organisations. And I'll talk in a little more detail about those. Closed Facebook groups are an incredible source of peer support and connection for families across Australia. There are closed Facebook groups in every town and suburb. Some are disability specific, some are more general. They tend to have moderation by a volunteer moderator. I have seen, I'm part of lots of groups myself, and I've seen incredible examples of support, encouragement, people just feeling validated and heard, people raising really quite complicated scenarios around things like family violence and actually getting some very accurate and pertinent information. I think at times, though, as with all things in online communities, you can get those that are perhaps a little more not as inclusive or not as informed. And I think it's just really important to say to families, see if you can find the one that works best for you. You can, of course, join as many as you like and just see which one has the sort of the feel and information that works for you. You do just have to Google and search in Facebook. There's no big list of these, but that does help you find things that are really responsive to your local community. I see that it can be very quick and responsive. It can be on the weekend. Where do I find a dentist that's going to be able to support my autistic child? And you'll get dozens of responses. And I think that can really help people feel like, okay, there's people who are knowledgeable and are going to direct me on my way. And they can be really important for providing that emotional support. I think the limitations, of course, of Facebook is that you're not actually going to sort of meet people and connect in that way. And so it's something that can really complement other forms of peer support, but it's really one to encourage. Perhaps worth talking to families that you're working with already that, perhaps a little further down their journey, but ones they are part of and ones that they really appreciate, and to let people know about those. The next option is My Time, and this is generally actually physical groups that come together. It's funded by the Australian government. It's been going since 2007. It's really part of the landscape. There are hundreds of groups that run across Australia. Most of these meet weekly during term time in a physical space. There is now also virtual My Time, so there's some online options as well, particularly for those who just can't get to the face-to-face sessions. The virtual options also run on weeknights, so particularly helpful for people who are working during the day. It's free. It's inclusive of all diagnosis, as well as on that journey to getting a diagnosis. It's for families with children 0 to 18. At the actual sessions, children and siblings are welcome. In fact, there's a play facilitator, a staff member there to help support the children and facilitate play. And then there is also a staff member there, a My Time coordinator, who leads the discussions between the parents and provides information to them. So My Time is a great option to talk about with families. Of course, like all groups, each group has its own sort of feel and vibe. And again, it can be worthwhile people trying one out if that one didn't quite work for them to try another one if it's close by. I have captured a bit of a map. This is probably a bit hard to see on a screen, but there are groups nationally. I appreciate there's not much in the middle of Australia there, but particularly, of course, in our metropolitan areas, there are lots of groups. There's 28 in Brisbane, 40 in Sydney, 21 in Adelaide. So across those sort of metropolitan areas, lots that people can get along to. There at the top there is the website address. People can search for their closest group and register online. The next option that's also available nationally is Play Connect Plus. This is also funded by the Australian government and delivered through the playgroup associations in each state and territory. It's also face-to-face. There's also an online version with this as well. And they meet weekly during term time, a bit like what you'd imagine when you think of playgroup. It's free, it's inclusive of all diagnosis and developmental delay. It is, of course, focused on families 0 to 8. Of course, most of the families attending have preschoolers, but they do some activities in the school holidays for those in those early years of primary school. And it is led by a facilitator who has that skills and experience in supporting the development and play of children with a disability. Again, a great place for families just to be somewhere non-judgmental and inclusive. I was actually at a Play Connect Plus group in Sunbury here in Victoria a couple of weeks ago, and that was the message that all of the mums talked about, was they felt that it was very non-judgmental, that their children with disability, the siblings were welcome, and that they could see the progress their children were making just in being able to participate in a group setting and following a group routine. And that really gave them a lot more confidence about their child's participation in things like kindergarten and school. I did another map of where Play Connect Plus is across Australia, and the website for that is there as well. Again, you simply look them up online and register. The fourth option in relation to connecting families to peer support is family-led organisations. And this is where it's a little bit of a state lottery, that if you are in Victoria, Tasmania, WA, or New South Wales, there are organisations dedicated to this. And apologies to everyone from South Australia, my home state, and Queensland and the Territory, because there isn't sort of just one central organisation that I can point you to. We can connect you with some things afterwards, but and all of these 4 organisations do some things that are relevant nationally. But if you are in Victoria, Tasmania, WA and New South Wales, these are great organisations to connect families to. They are all inclusive of all disability, those ages again, 0 to 18, and very much providing information, capacity building, peer support. I'm going to go into just a little bit more detail about ACD in Victoria because that's the organisation I lead. But what we do is really mirrored by the organisations in the other states. So one of the key things that I think that we offer families is this help across ages and stages throughout the journey that they're on. All of our information is written by parents raising children with disability, and we just have kind of a rolling cycle of sharing information and workshops. So at the point at which it's relevant and right for them, whether their child's about to start school or whether their child is moving on to secondary school, there's information for all of those ages and stages. Our information in particular is it's all online. It's available in 5 community languages. These are the key topics that we cover. And in relation to that sort of very practical information about things like the financial support that's available to families, how you save money with the carer card, what is the difference between the carer allowance and the carer payment? What free counselling is available to families raising children with disability? There is in Victoria, it's state government funded. Please feel free to use any of these resources, to share them with families, to use them in your own newsletters or social media channels. We're not fussed about that at all. We really welcome that. We're really about letting people know what is available to them in plain English and in languages that are relevant to them. The organisations in the other states also have very similar resources. And in fact, we collaborate and work together. So we're not all sort of duplicating things. One of us might write something and we'll put it on each of our websites. So you'll find most of the things are consistent across the board. All of our organizations run a range of free online workshops and peer support groups for families across our states. I think combined, we run around 350 to 400 workshops a year. These will be on topics like starting prep, getting support at school, preparing for NDIS check-ins, advocating for your child at hospital. It is getting support for children who are homeschooling. It's an array of information and topics. As I said, they're all free. We all have our own sort of calendars of upcoming things, and it is all provided and led by parents of children with disability who have those training and facilitation skills. So it's just a great way for people, again, to sort of get the information at their point of need when it's really relevant for them. Here in ACD, we also offer one-on-one over the phone advocacy support, and we work directly with families, but we're also very happy to work in a secondary consult approach with professionals like yourself. Obviously, with advocacy, families ring us when something is really challenging. So to be very upfront, education is the number one issue families raise with us, whether that is about their child getting the right support at childcare or kinder or school. And we support families to be proactive in getting support in place, but also to help them if they're experiencing situations such as the child only being able to attend a couple of hours a day, like being told by the school, that's all that can happen, or if they're experiencing repeated suspensions and things like that. So we work very collaboratively with the family and the school to try and improve the outcome for that child. I'm always really clear when talking about this. There is no silver bullet. And we appreciate that educators, teachers are also working within the constraints that they have and within a full classroom of children. But what we do is work to have improvements and to make gains for that child, to make sure that the educators are able to access the resources that they can, that's going to help them in their role. And just to work in that very collaborative approach where the child's at the centre of what we're trying to focus on here. So this is something you can certainly let families know about, but also please feel free to contact us yourselves. I think this just summarizes a little bit of what I've just said, but there's various ways to contact us, and we can certainly connect you with the relevant organisations in your state. I think the key part when thinking about this, and even in just describing all these things, which may be incredibly familiar to you, but if you're a parent of a child with disability, you don't know about these things at the start. And so hearing about them from trusted adults who you are accessing therapy from, or who your child's educator, or you're with Child and Family Services, you play such an important role in letting families know about things like peer support. And it is this positive ripple effect of peer support is why we sort of really advocate for that to be a core component of your toolkit. Because you may be aware of lots of amazing things in your local community and lots of other places that families can get support. But in your professional role, you only have so much time with a family, so much time to let them know things. And in fact, peer support can then become, I guess, your ally. It will back up the things that you're saying. It will help families connect to things locally. They'll hear it from other parents. And often there's real power in people hearing it from other families. But it also gives families, even when they're quite early in the journey, a chance to share what they know. And that can be really validating and encouraging for families and actually help them feel like that they're not quite so lost, that as other families come to this place newer on the journey, that they can say, actually, I know what occupational therapy is, and this is how it's helped my child. Or I've heard about an All Abilities Auskick. It's happening down here on a Friday night. Come along. And I think building family capacity and confidence in that way is actually really important part of all our practice. I will just pop this on the screen. If you're interested, we do a monthly email newsletter dedicated to information that's relevant just for children and families. Ours is obviously Victorian, but we can connect you up to what is relevant in your state. So please feel free to use the QR code there to subscribe. I am getting close to the end of what I was formally wanting to present, and I'm really happy to be able to answer any questions you might have and to give you a chance to sort of hear directly from you. So that's the end of my formal part, and I'll hand over to Anoo just to see if there's any questions.